Good afternoon everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all safe and well. Now on today's episode, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different from normal. It's not the usual what's the new items I've purchased. Rather, I'm going to be going through 10 albums which I truly believe are underrated, and they don't seem to have the presence on YouTube or anywhere else. If you think about the standard of the musicianship and the compositions, these are like my, not top 10, but just 10 interesting jazz albums which I believe, or from my collection, which I believe are underappreciated for whatever reason, and I'm not even sure what those reasons are. But hopefully you'll find 2 or 3 albums out of the 10 that you've never seen before, and you're gonna, hopefully I'm going to leave a link to these albums down below so you can hear a sample for yourself. You can do a bit more research, and if you think that it can fit into your collection, that you're going to benefit from it, it's available. You'll be able to get it yourself. So before we start these 10 great albums, in my opinion, which are underrated, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So bear with me just for a moment. First of all, I wanted to apologize for the tardiness in the kind of like how fast I bring out these videos. There's a couple of reasons for it. First of all, work commitments have really taken their toll, where I just haven't had the time really to do any of these kind of videos. And secondly, and more importantly, probably, you know, in this particular case, nothing's really come out recently which I really wanted to chase up. So either a re-release, or by going to some of the other independent record stores, I haven't found anything on the shelves that I really wanted to add to my collection, which is a real shame. I've had a budget to do this, and there's nothing which has really jumped out to me and said, you must have this for your collection. So it's really unfortunate. So that's partly the reason why, you know, I've been a bit lax on producing videos, because I just simply haven't had the material. And I don't feel it, well, from my personal point of view, I'm not the sort of person who's going to buy material jazz albums in particular just to do a video on, and I have to love them. They have to work for me. I'm not just going to buy them just to put them in a video and then try and sell them on to somebody else. I just can't be bothered with any of that. I just rather buy what I like. So that's the kind of reason for the tardiness. The second one is a really joyful news. Since the last video, up until you seen this present one, we have crossed the 500 sub mark. You and I together, and we've done this. Yeah, I've got a slight kind of like frog in my throat, and a little emotional about it, because I can remember setting up this channel, and you know, the only people who, you know, I can remember when I had 16 subscribers, and I thought that was a big deal as far as I was concerned. And yeah, that was pretty much friends and family type thing. So I'm sure all of you who have YouTube channels will know that feeling where people that you don't know start to subscribe to you, and the sense of joy and kind of justification and just slight horror, and you know, it's a mix of emotions when you get people from not only from your particular country, your area, from your continent, joining your channel as subscribers, but people from further afield. It's always a nice warm feeling. It kind of gives you a sense of you're not on your own out there. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you who have subscribed. Thank you for doing so. It does take a bit of effort. Yeah, it's pressing a couple of buttons, but you still have to set up an account. So I appreciate each and every one of you. who have made this all possible. So thank you for getting me over the 500 subscribers mark. It's just, yeah, well, words fail me at this point, but it's just a really good feeling. So thank you, and yeah. So before I start break down and start crying about it, let's push on with today's video. So today, oh, sorry, I should go back on one other thing. The last episode, the contemporary jazz episode, I want to thank each and every one of you who took the time and trouble to watch the video, and it was really nice to hear from some of you where it inspired you to not only listen to some of these albums but to purchase some of them for your own collection. For me, it was always a tricky situation in the sense of by watching other people's channels, and I don't do that all the time because I don't want to be influenced by other people, but when I do happen to watch other jazz vinyl channels, they tend to stick to a particular era within jazz, a particular sound in jazz, and each person is allowed to do whatever they want. I have no kind of I'm not throwing shade out there, but that seems to be the more popular videos in terms of viewing. So I took a chance on the contemporary jazz episode just to give people an idea of what else is out there and see if they would like it. These are items that I fell in love with. They happen to be within the last 10 years. I think they truly did deserve some kind of recognition. So it was really nice to see some positive feedback and some nice viewer numbers for that particular episode. So each and every one of you who watched and found something positive, I want to thank you for that as well. It was something I was really debating about whether or not to do, so I'm really glad that I did it. So that's enough of the housekeeping. Today's video is going to be about underrated jazz albums, from what I believe are underrated jazz albums from my collection and what I've seen on YouTube in terms of what other people are producing. These albums which are not necessarily, well, they are by known artists, but they just I don't think they get the prominence or the respect that they perhaps deserve. So out of these 10, they're not in any particular order, but there are nice touches in here. So there's a lot of introspective as well as extrovert jazz. There's, in terms of genres within jazz, there's a bit of bop, there's a bit of soul jazz, there's a bit of modal, and there's a bit of gospel. One in particular has a kind of more gospel jazz influence. It's pretty obvious once you hear it. You go, oh yeah, that sounds like something which may have come from like a church influence. But all of them are interesting journeys. They're not in any particular order, these 10. So hopefully you'll find something there which really does interest you and will work in your collection. I really do hope so. So let's just kick off and start at the beginning. I should say as well that I've recorded this video. This is probably the third time I've had some technical issues. Hopefully they won't. It's going to work this time, and I might have to do it again. But yeah, let's just get on with it. Why don't we? So the first one out of my collection of 10 underrated albums is, I'm trying to see from what year this was originally released. 1974. It was on the Strata East label, and I happen to really enjoy this album. I'm not sure why more people ain't talking about it in terms of how good it is. And this is by a gentleman called Harold Vick, and the album's entitled Don't Look Back. So I try and tip it in a way so you don't get so much glare. Absolutely cool album cover. Loving the woolly hat. Dude's wearing denim jacket as well. He's killing it, absolutely killing it. And let me show you the reverse side as well. Yeah, so a multi-instrumentalist, Mr. Vick. I really rate this guy. This is an absolutely stonking album, full of passion, power. It has an intensity which it's just what I like in my jazz. I love it. It's just got a punch about it, which I just go, oh yeah. Sorry about that. I got a bit clicking. Let me just button that. Oh, could you hear that snap? There you go. Sorry. Hopefully it won't rattle anymore. Just lovely compositions, played with verve and panache, which yeah, I bought it, put it on, listened to it a couple of times, and kind of, in all honesty, I forgot about it, and took it off my shelf again, gave it a good listen, and it just blew my socks off again. I love the idea of revisiting albums, and they just give you that sense of you really did well to get your hands on it. This is so it puts a smile on my face. You got 6 great tracks on this particular one. I'm just trying to see who else in terms of musicians who you could be looking out for. You're looking at for Virgil Jones on trumpet, Billy Hart on drums, Sam Jones on bass, Joe Bonner's on here, and you can hear Joe Bonner's influence on here. His particular piano style, yeah, it does resonate through here. If you've not heard this album before, please give it a chance. As I said, I'm going to try and leave links down below so you can hear it for yourself. I think if you haven't got it in your collection, you really should consider doing so. You're doing yourself a slight injustice. Good piece of vinyl, nice weight to it, no complaints at all. It was a really good buying experience, and I feel really glad to have it in my collection, if I haven't said that 5 times already. So that's the first album today, Harold Vick, Don't Look Back, 1974, Strata East label. Right, the next one today, yeah, it's one of those, for me, this is one of the jazz albums that I'm kind of proud of myself in terms of trawling through people's catalogues and seeing what they have and taking a chance and not just going necessarily by names that I already know. Yeah, just, broadening my horizons of what is out there in jazz. And that's what I hope to do with this particular channel as well, is to broaden everybody's knowledge of what's out there. And this certainly fits all the bills. This is on the Steeplechase label, so that's a European label. It's a 1981 release, and it's by a gentleman called John Mcneal. There you go. Maybe about 5 episodes ago, I had another album by him. I love his output. I really do think this guy, I'm late to the party with him, and I feel slightly embarrassed that I should have known about this gentleman way before I actually did. He's absolutely fantastic. On this album, he is accompanied by Billy Hart, Rufus Reid, Joanne Brackeen. I believe that's the wife of Anthony Brackeen, maybe. I think I'm right in that. And Dave Liebman. Absolutely stonking album. Again, played with panache, played with power and a sensitivity. I don't really like to talk in flowery terms about jazz albums because it really comes across as pretentious, but this is really nice. It really is a rewarding piece of work. I can't recommend it enough. So if you haven't heard of this gentleman, or you've never heard this album before, please do give it a listen. It might just fit in your collection, and it will put a smile on your face, just as it has with me. So with this particular album, again, we have 6 tracks on this particular one, all of which are really nice. You just got to give them a chance. That's all I can say, really. The vinyl itself is not the thickest, but that's just a case of my own personal preferences and biases. I like a thicker vinyl. It's not horrendously light, but it's not great either, but the recording itself is absolutely superb. Have a listen to it. Really, you're going to be doing yourself a favor. So that's the second album today. Again, it's John Mcneal, 1981, on the Steeplechase label. A good bit of, like, well, the label itself is a European jazz label, but yeah, American artists, fantastic. Ooh. The third album today is one that these were re-released a while ago, I think last year or like 2 years ago, and a lot of people have got the entire catalogue from this particular record label, which again is Strata East. I cherry picked from them, so I took the artists and the albums that I had listened to, liked, enjoyed, and made them mine. And this is one of the ones which kind of, I feel, what was overlooked unfairly. It's Charles Toliver and Musiek Inc., and the album's entitled Compassion. Again, I had this on my shelf for a while after the initial listening to it. Knew I liked it, but again, on revisiting it, I realized once again how good this album is. It's a lovely piece of introspection. Maybe that's why he's got the particular, the pictures taken in this particular way of him, of Mr. Toliver, that he's just contemplating what he's doing, and whatever mental effort he's put into it, he really, it was worth it. It's a great body of work, this one. It really is. It's modal, as well as there's a slight bop elements in there, not hard bop, but there is bop in there, but it's modal as well. It's just a lovely balance. It's a 4-track album, just really good. So you got Nathan Page on guitar, Alvin Queen on drums, and Steve Novosel on bass. Great little lineup. Not necessarily musicians I've heard of before outside of Mr. Toliver, but it doesn't matter. It's the end result, which that's what I care about. Yeah, yeah, I have to whisper. It's just good, just real good. You should be able to find this relatively easy. I'm not saying it's going to be inexpensive. It probably will be on the more expensive side, but it's worth it. It's worth it. But that depends on what you've got in your collection already. I'm half assuming that your jazz collection is pretty buff already. So I'll be surprised if you don't have this one already. But if you don't, give it a listen, see what you think, and hopefully it can convince you to get it on your shelf as well, which I think it should be there, to be quite honest. So that's the third album today. The fourth album to show you today is one which I discovered and purchased for cheap as chips, relatively in the scheme of how much vinyl costs at this moment in time. I was so surprised on how cheap the retailer was selling this for. So I can only assume that those who knew of this artist had already purchased this album, or it was just simply ignored, which happens quite often in terms of something just doesn't take traction. People don't take a chance on it. But certainly, not necessarily from the album cover, but it was just one where I was trawling through somebody's catalogue, saw it and said to myself, you know what, just at least give it a listen, see what you think. And I am so glad that I did. This is a really nice album. So it has that 50s, mid 50s to 60s sound, which I don't always like, but in this case I do. Anyway, enough of the preamble. It's Jerome Richardson Sextet, and the album's entitled Midnight Oil. There you go. I'll try and do it in a way that it doesn't reflect. That is a nice cover, I must admit. So accompanying Mr. Richardson on this particular one is Kenny Burrell on guitar and Hank Jones on piano. There's a few other artists, but those are the standout ones. This is on the New Jazz record label, this particular one. And I just found this a really enjoyable ride. It has a lightness and delicateness of touch, which I've only got a few examples of in my particular collection. So it's on the Mcneal side of things, but there is beauty to be found on here if you give it a chance. I don't think on maybe one or two listenings that you'll get a real sense of what's going on. You need to listen to it maybe 6-7 times, and then you kind of get it. It's you know where the direction of where things are going from, and you really do appreciate the subtleties and nuances of what's being played and the compositions in front of you. So really good experience with this. I'm hoping that if you do try and track this album down yourself, you will get it for cheap as chips as well. It's one of my best buys, I've got to say. It's one of the best buys in the jazz section of my collection. So I'm really pleased with this. Again, I'm going to try and leave links down below so you can hear it for yourself. And if you do like it, I'm hoping that you'll be able to get it not only easily, but as cheap as chips as I did. So there you go. So that's Jerome Richardson, Midnight Oil, on the New Jazz label. I think it dates from mid-50s to mid-60s, something like that. I'm not sure entirely, but I would say it's a Van Gelder recording, hence why it sounds the way it does. It does make sense. So there you go. That was the fourth one. The fifth one today, again, it was a case of trawling through someone's, a retailer's collection and looking for albums that artists and albums that I've not come across before. I like to do that. So I may not have as many albums as many of you out there, in terms of individual albums, but in terms of artists, I might have, if not the same, more, in terms of, because I give people a chance. I don't want the back catalogue of the entire back catalogue of any particular artist. I like to cherry pick what I like from their discography and just go, if it's 4 or 5 albums, that's fine for me. I don't need to have all 25. I don't feel the need to do that. I have to like it. It needs to resonate with me. Now, with this particular artist, I'm just going to read you some of the blurb first, and I'll show you the cover. Bop legend Sadiq Hakim moved to Montreal in 1966, and he recorded this major musical statement for the CBC. I think that's Canadian. Well, I know it's the Canadian Broadcasting Company in 1973. Flanked by his fellow expatriates, saxophonist Saeed Kabayi and Billy Robinson, Hakim created a niche classic spanning a wide spectrum of jazz styles, from the beautiful ballads to the funky. Anyway, I won't read on, but I'm going to show it to you. This is Sadiq Hakim, and it's a self-titled album. There you go. Now, two of the things what drew me to this album. I liked the cover. I must admit, never heard of the gentleman before. Liked the look of the cover, wanted to give it a go. And when I did listen to it, it was like all the stars were in alignment. This particular gentleman, when he recorded this, the inspiration, certainly on the A side of this album, is all London centric. So as a Londoner, I'm going to be curious as to hear what's going on. So side A is entitled The London Suite. It has tracks with the names as follows: Heathrow in the Morning, Oxford Circus at Noon, Greek Street Break-In, and Harlow Homecoming. I had to find out what this was about. I had to find out, and I'm so glad that I took a chance on it. This is a really, really nice modal jazz album. It really is. It just, even thinking about it, makes the tone of my voice change and get deeper and really slower. Yeah, I just had an enjoyable ride with this. I'm not sure, even when I tried to check out some of his material on YouTube, couldn't really find any, to be quite honest. There was a couple of albums, so I might struggle to leave links for this one, but I'm sure on some of the other music portals out there, you will be able to find this album for you to have a good listen to. But really and truly, this was, in terms of bang for bucks, value for money, it just ticked all my boxes in terms of, an obscure artist, relatively. It just ticked everything for me. I was really, really glad to get my hands on this one. And I've tried to tell everybody I've come across that this exists. Have a listen to it. It might just work for you as it has worked for me. So hence why I'm showing it to you. So there you go. The next album is, again, from the European. I've got itchy nose for whatever reason. I'm not sure what that's all about. Let me just do that. Yeah, that was rather disgusting, but there you go. The next album I'm going to show you is, again, from the European label Steeplechase. And I kind of have got into that label over the last, I would say, 3 years, something like that, 3 to 4 years. Slowly but surely, I recognize what this label, the output they were putting, the output of this label, and it was underrated artists. Artists, again, who I believe are just as good as anybody out there. They just don't have the recognition, and they tend to be more on the contemporary side of things. So when I'm talking about contemporary and jazz, that's anything from the last 30 years pretty much. So yeah, they're just not given, in my opinion, the respect they deserve. And this is a really good example. This is by a gentleman called Doug Rainey. And the album is the Doug Rainey Quintet. And it's a self-titled album. And let me show you the cover. So you can see him working that guitar fretboard. Yeah, he's feeling it. And that's represented on the album as well. It's like the other Steeplechase, the Mcneal that I showed you earlier, very much the same in terms of the vinyl isn't as heavy as I would like it. It's recorded superbly though, and the artistry on display here is If in your collection you've got some Wes Montgomery or George Benson, some, a guitarist of that kind of ilk, then certainly I think the Doug Rainey's output would interest you, and hopefully you'll find it in your heart to give him a chance. And once you've heard it, you'd say to yourself, well, this is good enough to be in my collection as well. When I heard this, I went, this is good. This is real good. I don't have enough jazz guitar albums in my collection. And I wasn't, I'm not a person who's going to force the issue. I really have to like it. And in this case, I really did. Now, this album it's a 5-track album. It's a mixture of both a couple of standards and some original material here. For example, there's a track on side one, track one, there's a track called Fata, F-A-T-A. Hopefully I can link to it so you can hear it for yourself. That is unbelievable. Now, the tune what follows it, which is Fee Fi Fo Fum, you may know it, the Wayne Shorter version of it, which is outstanding. His version can compete with it, and there ain't no like huge gap between them. They're pretty much interchangeable, and I never would have thought, those words would have been uttered from my mouth, but I just think it's a statement of fact. So there you go. A really good album. If you can still find it, I think I got the last copy from the retailer. I don't imagine that they ordered in a lot, but I reckon you can get this still if you put the effort in. Certainly secondhand, yeah, you'd be like no problem. I don't think you. Well, hopefully it's not too expensive anyway. But have a listen, see if it works for you. If you like jazz guitar, this might be. Or you didn't even know if you like jazz guitar. This might be the perfect gateway for you. So I'm super pumped to have it. Hopefully you guys will feel the same out there as well. And did I say the year? That was 1989 release, this particular one. Again, on the Steeplechase label, and it's Doug Rainey Quintet. The next album was an absolute joy. I had ignored this album for some time, maybe about 2 years. I'd seen it around and just flatly ignored it. And it was my own fault for not joining up the dots. And what I mean by that is the particular artist in question here, he's associated with another outfit, which is the Pan-African People's Orchestra. And I just never made the connection. I just, for whatever reason, just didn't think about it. Not to say that would, in and of itself, would make me buy a particular artist's album, but it will give me an insight into at least where their background is, and in terms of giving an album a chance, I would have been more prone to doing it. So the gentleman in question is Jesse Sharps, and this is the Jesse Sharps Quintet, and the album's entitled Sharps and Flats. Yeah, pretty simple cover there. I am kicking myself. It took me so long to get hold of this album. It is magnificent, in my opinion. It's as good as any jazz album out there, really. Okay, there's people out there who will go like, absolutely not. This guy is just like, he's like run of the mill. Feel free to have that opinion. I would say if you haven't got this album in your collection, or you haven't heard it, or you may have only heard it once, that's not enough to really appreciate what's going on here. This is a statement of intent. This is real good. Now, in the Pan-African People's Orchestra, I've got a couple of their albums by some of their, the artists who are under that umbrella, and that would include Adele Sebastian and, of course, Horace Tapscott himself. Got some real nice albums by them, and again, it's part of I've learnt a lesson from this to, read the sleeve notes more. It's not a guarantee that I'm going to purchase the album, but at least it's going to give me a sense of where this artist is coming from. This is a gorgeous body of work. It really is. There's no messing about here. This is authentic. It really is. I'm jealous that I have no musical talent. I wish I did. So and it was around at that era where I could have joined this group in order to be on this album. It's that good. It's just a statement. It's just like So there you go. Yeah, it's a double vinyl in this particular case. I know there is a really, within the last 3 months, there is a re-release of this version, and I think it might be on a Japanese imprint, and it's ridiculous amounts of money for it, considering that this one exists. So try and find this one. If you can't, you'll have to go for the Japanese one. They're identical as far as I know, but just the Japanese one, you're paying that extra for an OB strip. I think maybe one or two of the tracks are in slightly different orders, nothing more than that, but a fine body of work. This, give it a listen, please. If you don't have it already, never heard of it, and you like jazz, you really like jazz, and you're on the journey of it, there you go. Right, next one. We are down to our last three. The next one I'm going to show you absolutely blew my socks off. I have an album by this gentleman already, and I believe it's called Capra Black. Loved it. I really do love it. I don't think many other people share my enthusiasm for it, but I saw, and I haven't really seen his work out in the wild apart from that particular album. So when I came across this one, I had to give it a listen, and he's kind of done for me, and I'm going to try and stay from being hyperbolic about it, but he's almost done the Miles Davis thing where he's showing you he's such a good artist that he can switch, subgenres within jazz really easily and produce magnificent bodies of work. Now, the gentleman I'm talking about is Billy Harper, and the album's entitled Black Saint. I love the cover, love it. This is, when I think of jazz albums, it looks something like this, in my mind's eye. Now, this particular album was released in 1975, and it was on the Our Swimmer record label, so I'm assuming it's a very small imprint. Now, in the introduction, I spoke about gospel jazz. This is the one I'm talking about. This one really does have that underpinnings of the church environment, and it's just superb. From my point of view anyway, there is a real soul, there is a real heart to it, there is a majesty going on. And again, these all sound like flowery terms, and I try to avoid them when I'm talking about jazz albums. I kind of just keep it simple to I like it or don't like it, or it's But in this case, it really is outstanding. It's a breath of fresh air from what probably is in your collection already. This is going to give it it's going to give it a different tonality, this particular album in your collection. You're going to see your collection slightly differently from that point onwards. Please do give it a listen. So again, I'm going to try and leave links down below. If I do struggle, you'll have to find it on some other music platform. This is a work of genius. It really is. I don't know why more people are not talking about it. Or, there's a lot of YouTubers with jazz records, and they don't seem to have mentioned this one. Now, it may be good for me in terms of, okay, this is what you come to this channel for, is to encounter albums that no one else is talking about. It is a good thing, but there is a bit of pressure on me. I feel like that lone voice in the wilderness type thing. Of course, there's going to be thousands of you out there who have this album, but you haven't said anything about it. You certainly haven't put it in the public sphere. So if you see this out in the wild, please give it a listen. If you see it for a good price, I just say, you know what? Do not leave that retailer without having this on you. You're taking this home with you. Really, it's got to be like that. So as I said, 1975, Billy Harper, Black Saint, spiritual gospel jazz. Ooh. And it's 3 tracks on this particular one. So yeah. All right, we're into our final 2 now. So I've just switched the order at the last minute. The next one, I'd say, I've given you a slight glimpse there. Maybe you can work it out from that little corner what's poking out there. So a gentleman called Cedar Walton, I've known about him for like decades, and I just haven't seen his work out there in the wild for me to buy in and around London at this moment in time. Post this video, I might see his entire back catalogue and be able to get it no problem, but I've struggled to find his work, and I know that I've got loads of CDs and that, and I know I like his body of work. He's an excellent pianist, absolutely excellent. So when I do see his work, I leap on it I need to hear it, and if I can buy it, I'm gonna, and I did in this case. This is from 1976. It is Eastern Rebellion, and that's the album cover. I think it's a self-titled album, but I would put this, you know, yes, Eastern Rebellion must be the name of the supergroup here. But yeah, I just think of it as Cedar Walton, really. He is accompanied by Sam Jones on bass, Billy Higgins on drum, George Coleman on tenor, and this is unbelievable. This is, again, power here. It's bop, it's soul jazz, there's a bit of Moldal on there, it's got a bit of everything, but it's all done with a sense of class. It really is. It's just classy. You just it's just fantastic. Really did get into this. Now this is a reprint copy. I'm not going to show it to you, but the vinyl itself is transparent, and I hate that. I really hate it. And if I known it was going to be a transparent vinyl, I would have bought it anyway, because I didn't have much choice. There wasn't like, I just bought the copy that I could get my hands on. It's unfortunate. I hate transparent vinyl. I don't get it. I don't want it. I just want normal black, and that's going to be fine. The album itself, really good weight to it, very good musicianship, really well recorded. Quite a few of you will have this, but for those who don't, please give it a listen to. It's gonna change your appreciation and your understanding of jazz. It really will. Each of the albums I've shown you so far will do that in their own way. This one is, it's real good. It's real good. So don't deny yourself. Find it, listen to it. It might fit in your collection, and I hope that it does for your sake, because I'm certainly glad to have it. So there you go. And the very last one today, again, it's just trawling through somebody's retail collection. I like the backstory to this. It's a small independent pressing and blah blah blah. I shouldn't say blah blah blah, but it's kind of like I could see that it was unloved on the retailers in their shelves. It was unloved. Nobody was looking at it. Nobody took the chance on listening to it. I'm super glad that I did. And this is the Paris Smith Kenneth Hill Quartets. There you go. Saucy cover once you work out what's going on there, and hopefully YouTube won't do anything about it. Yeah, so this is a 79 original recording on the Oracle label. This is real good. Now, I've got to say, as a, just to say up front, the issue that you would have with this is, and there's nothing you can do. It's of its era. It was recorded on a budget. It was originally like a cottage industry pressing. It doesn't, compared to like other albums from bigger labels, this sounds pretty terrible. But the compositions and the musicianships are of such a standard that, for me at least, that overrode any other concerns. I had to have it. This is a thing of beauty. It's honest. It really is honest. It's, again, it's one of those kind of albums that I would have loved to have been part of if I had the actual talent. It's that good. I'm not sure if you can find it out there. I'm really not sure. I've kind of like switched myself off in the sense of, I've got it, I'm happy, you guys have got to take your chances. But what I've done is, at least I'm going to show it to you, and hopefully you can find it for yourselves. Please do give it a listen. It is absolute tour de force in honest jazz. Super glad to have it in my collection. Can't think of my collection without it being in there, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I've never heard of Paris Smith or Kenneth Hill, never heard of them, but I will look out for some of their other output. If it does exist, I certainly will be looking for it. So that's the last album for today. Thank you very much for joining me once again. Hopefully this recording is going to work. I really do hope so. Thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, 2 or 3 of these albums you've never seen before. They're going to work for your collection, and I hope that you will have them on your shelves sometime soon, because my collection really, it has benefited from those 10 albums. I've got to say, it's a break from the norm. It's not the normal big label jazz stuff. This is something else. So you've got to put a bit of effort into it, and I'm glad that I did. So until the next episode, please look after yourselves, and thank you once again for getting us over the 500 subscriber mark. Namaste. I'm really grateful for you guys putting in the effort, watching my videos, and yeah, because you always think to yourself that you're just in isolation and you're talking absolute craziness, and it's nice to see that at least 500 and something of you don't think I'm crazy. So it's always nice. So until the next episode, take care of yourselves. I might be doing like 10 jazz fusion albums. I might be doing that as the next one. Not entirely sure, but whatever it is, I'll do it as quickly as I can. But I have to think about, does it work? Is it the appropriate standard? Is it interesting enough? So until the next episode, hopefully it won't be too long into the future. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you